You just said that you would keep a laser focus on counterterrorism efforts and that you don't see as great of a threat of terrorism from Afghanistan as other parts of the world. But if you and your administration so badly misassessed how quickly the Taliban would sweep through Afghanistan, and we no longer have an embassy there from which to run intelligence operations, how can you at all be confident of your assessment of the risk of terrorism and the ability of the U.S. to conduct over-the-horizon missions to keep it in check? Can you tell Americans that they're safe and will remain safe from terror attacks in Afghanistan?
I think you're comparing apples and oranges. One question was whether or not the Afghan forces we trained up would stay and fight in their own civil war they had going on. No one, I shouldn't say no one, the consensus was that it was highly unlikely that in 11 days they'd collapse and fall and the leader of Afghanistan would flee the country. That's a very different question than whether or not there is the ability to observe whether or not large groups of terrorists begin to accumulate in a particular area in Afghanistan to plot against the United States of America. That's why we retained an over-the-horizon capability to go in and do something about that if that occurs. But in the meantime,
जो बाइडेन से सवाल पूछा गया कि असेसमेंट आपका अभी तक गलत साबित हुआ है कि किस तरह से वहाँ पर जो सेना है अफगान सेना वो लड़ पाएगी तालिबान को लेकर। इस पर उनका जवाब था कि इसका अंदाज़ा किसी को भी नहीं था कि 11 दिन में ही सेना और जो नेता जिसको वहाँ पर बैठाया गया था राष्ट्रपति के तौर पर वो इस तरह से गिर जाएंगे तालिबान के सामने। लेकिन काउंटर टेररिज्म ऑपरेशन को अंजाम देने की क्षमता अमेरिका में है। ओवर द होराइजन यानी जाकर अफगानिस्तान में अगर वहाँ पर आतंकवादी इकट्ठा होते हैं तो उन पर कार्रवाई करने की क्षमता हमारे पास है और रहेगी।
Sir, just on that initial assessment, we learned over the last 24 hours that there was a dissent cable from the State Department saying that the Taliban would come faster through Afghanistan. Can you say why, after that cable was issued, the U.S. didn't do more to get Americans out?
All kinds of cables, all kinds of advice. If you notice, it ranged from this group saying that they didn't say it'd fall when it would fall, when it did fall, but saying that it would fall, to others saying it wouldn't happen for a long time and they'd be able to sustain themselves through the end of the year. I made the decision. The buck stops with me. I took the consensus opinion. The consensus opinion was that, in fact, it would not occur, if it occurred, until later in the year. So it was my decision.
जो बाइडेन से एक बार फिर सवाल पूछा जा रहा है कि अगर स्टेट डिपार्टमेंट ने इस तरह का केबल जारी किया था जिसपे जानकारी थी कि तालिबान जल्दी कब्जा कर लेगा तो फिर अमेरिका को निकालने के लिए पहले कुछ क्यों नहीं किया गया?
Thank you, Mr. President. 2 questions for you. The military has secured the airport, as you mentioned, but will you sign off on sending U.S. troops into Kabul to evacuate Americans who haven't been able to get to the airport safely?
We have no indication that they haven't been able to get in Kabul through the airport. We've made an agreement with the Taliban thus far. They've allowed them to go through. It's in their interest for them to go through. So we know of no circumstance where American citizens are carrying an American passport are trying to get through to the airport. But we will do whatever needs to be done to see to it they get to the airport.
सवाल पूछा गया कि एयरपोर्ट के अलावा क्या अगर कोई अमेरिकी एयरपोर्ट तक पहुंचना चाहता है तो उसको भी क्या सुनिश्चित करने के लिए सुरक्षित करने के लिए सेना को भेजने के लिए तैयार है? जो बाइडेन का जवाब था कि ऐसी जानकारी उनके पास नहीं है, हमारी तालिबान के साथ अंडरस्टैंडिंग है, अमेरिकन पासपोर्ट होल्डर को वो एयरपोर्ट में जाने दे रहे हैं.
Literally hunting him down. Thankfully he was able to escape, but he is obviously still in mortal danger. What would be your message to Abdul, his wife, and his 3 young daughters?
We want you to be able to get to the airport. Contact us. We'll see whatever we can do to get you there. We've got to get you out. We are committed to deal with you, your wife, and your child, to get all 3 of you out of Afghanistan. That's the commitment.
Thank you, sir.
Meredith Lee,
जो बाइडेन से सवाल पूछा गया परिवार के बारे में, वो एयरपोर्ट तक नहीं पहुंच पा रहे हैं, उनको बाहर निकालने के लिए क्या प्रतिबद्धता एक राष्ट्रपति के तौर पर अमेरिका के वो देना चाहेंगे?
Why haven't you ordered the military to expand the security perimeter around the Kabul airport? Do you have any plans to do so, given that will likely require more U.S. troops? And are you considering rescue operations to recover Americans and Afghan allies stuck behind Taliban checkpoints?
The answer is yes to the last question. We're considering every opportunity and every means by which we could get folks to the airport. That's number one. Number two, the reason why we have not gone out and started and set up a perimeter way outside the airport in Kabul is that it's likely to draw an awful lot of unintended consequences in terms of people who, in fact, are not part of the Taliban. We've been in constant contact with the Taliban leadership on the ground in Kabul, as well as the Taliban leadership at Daho. And we've been coordinating what we were doing. That's why we were able, for example, how we got all of our embassy
के नेतृत्व के साथ लगातार संपर्क में हैं, काबुल में भी और बाकी जगहों पर भी, और इस वजह से ये फैसला नहीं लिया गया कि काबुल एयरपोर्ट से बाहर निकलकर पेरिमीटर को भी सिक्योर किया जाए, क्योंकि उसकी वजह से और ज़्यादा कैजुअल्टीज हो सकते हैं और ज़्यादा लोग उसकी जद में आ सकते हैं जो तालिबान के साथ नहीं है.
Each of those judgments to be made, but the idea of, again, let me get back to the fundamental point I made at the outset. When the decision was made by me that, and it was made some time ago, and I ran 4 presidents saying I wanted to get us out of Afghanistan. One of the things that is a reality is people now say to me and to others, and many of you say it on air, that why did we have to move because no Americans are being attacked? Why did we withdraw those, why did we agree to withdraw 2,500 troops? No Americans are being attacked. As I said before, the reason they weren't being attacked was part of an agreement that Trump had made a year earlier. We will leave by May 1st, he said, as long as there's no attack on Americans in that year period. Number one. Number two, the Taliban was taking large swaths of the countryside, north and south. None of the major areas, none of the major points of the capitals of each of these provinces. But they were all over the country. And the idea that if I had said on May the 2nd or 3rd, we are not leaving, we are staying, does anybody truly believe that I would not have had to put in significantly more American forces, send your sons, your daughters, like my son was sent to Iraq, to maybe die? And for what? For what? So the only rational thing to do, in my view, was to set up and pre-position American forces for the purpose of evacuation and the aircraft to pre-position those ahead of time so that we would be able to begin the process of evacuation of American citizens, SIVs, and others who helped us.
फिक्र आपकी सोमवार से शुक्रवार रात 9 बजे सिर्फ TV9 भारतवर्ष पर.